Hi guys, today we are going to start with chromosomes. So some of you might ask, well, why are we going to be learning about chromosomes? Don't they contain DNA? We will talk about chromosomes when we talk about DNA, but we need to touch on chromosomes because we need to know the importance of them before we go into cell reproduction, mitosis and meiosis, because the only time that you see chromosomes are during mitosis and meiosis. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is a chromosome? What is its structure? So if you look at a chromosome, you're going to notice that it's rod-shaped. It has coiled DNA, and that DNA is going to be coiled around something called a histone or a protein. These are important because they are going to help maintain the shape of the chromosome, and they're also going to help pack that DNA tightly together. So here is a picture of a chromosome. So you can kind of see it has that rod shape. The two rods are going to be held together in kind of that X. In eukaryotic cells, so plant animal cells, you're going to see this X shape. In prokaryotes or bacteria, you're going to see a circular shaped chromosome. So this is going to be a eukaryotic chromosome. So a chromosome is going to consist of two identical halves, or a chromatid. So you're going to hear these words. You're going to hear chromosome, you're going to hear chromatid. One half of a chromosome is called a chromatid, and it's going to contain identical information. These two chromatids are going to be attached by a centromere. Centromere is also an important term because you are going to hear this when we talk about mitosis. So whenever I always do this little thing. I don't know if you can see me a little visual. So if I have a chromosome, it's going to be made out of two things. Now I'm using highlighters to kind of show you. So this would be a chromatid with a chromatid, and they're going to come together and they're going to be attached by a centromere. And sometimes I like to think of the centromere as a button too. So you have your chromatid come together to make a chromosome. What is that chromosome held together by? A centromere. Uncoiled DNA is known as chromatin or chromatin, and you'll also hear that a little bit, but usually when we see uncoiled DNA, we usually refer to it as just simply DNA. So this is going to show you the succession from that stringy chromatin into a chromosome. So again, we only see chromosomes during mitosis or meiosis. So cellular reproduction is the only time we're going to see that chromosome. So you can kind of see the process or the succession. So we have this stringy DNA. It's going to be wrapped around those histones, those proteins we talked about. Then those histones are going to compact together. And then they're going to continue to pack and continue to coil and pack together until we see the chromosome. So remember, half of a chromosome is a chromatid that's going to be held together by a centromere. So there's a few different types of chromosomes that we're going to talk about. So in a human, we have 23 pairs of chromosomes, or 46 total. We have two types of chromosomes. The first type of chromosome that we're going to talk about is a sex chromosome. Now, sex chromosomes their main job is to determine gender. So there's two types of sex chromosomes. There's an X and a Y. You have two copies. If you are a female, you have a copy of an X and another copy of an X. If you are a male, you have a copy of an X and then you have a copy of a Y. So when sex is being determined in a baby, the male's actually doing it. So remember, you get half of your information from your mom and half of your information from your dad. So if a female gives a sex chromosome, no matter which one she gives, she's going to give an X. A male, on the other hand, he can either have the option, and when I say give, this is kind of determined during meiosis. He can either give his X or he can give a Y. So the father is the one that's going to be responsible for determining gender of a baby. So a lot of pressure on the dad. So here's a picture. These are actual pictures of chromosomes. So here we have our X chromosome, and here we have our Y chromosome. And you can kind of see the difference in size of the two. The second type of chromosome is an autosomal chromosome. So since you have two sex chromosomes or one pair, that means that you have 22 pairs or 44 autosomal chromosomes. And these are all of the other chromosomes in your karyotype. And these contain everything else. So your eye color, your hair color, how tall you're going to be, are you going to have a genetic disorder? All of this information is contained within your autosomal chromosomes. Now, another term that you're going to hear is homologous chromosomes. Now, homologous chromosomes means that there are two copies of the chromosome. They're the same size, shape, and they carry the same genes. And what this means is that you inherit one chromosome from your mom, you inherit one chromosome from your dad. So let's just say in terms of that, let's say location 1, which will make sense in a second. This chromosome will carry information for eye color, and this chromosome that you receive from your mom or dad also contains the information for eye color. These are homologous chromosomes, so they're the same size, shape, and they carry the same genes. This is important. All of the genes in your chromosomes are on the exact same spot. So in humans, I'll just use eye color for example. The eye color gene is on the same chromosome in every single human being. Now, the information that is carried within that gene might be a little different, and that's why we have brown eyes and blue eyes and green eyes. And really, eye color isn't just determined by one gene, and we'll talk about that later on when we talk about genetics. All right, numbers of chromosomes. So every species on the earth has a specific number of chromosomes. A human has 46 chromosomes or 23 pairs. So you can kind of see right here, a carrot has 18 chromosomes, a dog has 78, fruit fly 8, humans, like I said, 46, sand dollar 52, which is right here, if you aren't familiar with the sand dollar. These are echinoderms, they're actually living. So sometimes people are surprised that these are actually considered animals, but they are. Pretty cool. We have a fern, which is a primitive type of plant. They have 1,262 chromosomes. And then a garden pea, just like a pea that you eat, is going to have 20 chromosomes. So you can kind of look at these numbers and see that number of chromosomes or genetic information doesn't necessarily relate to higher level intelligence. So if it did, this fern would be considered extremely intelligent in comparison to a human, and we know that that's not true. All right, so I referred to a term called a karyotype a little bit earlier. So a karyotype is really cool. So what it does is it's going to map out, or it's going to profile someone's chromosome. So this is a human karyotype, and you can do this for any organism. All living things have DNA, which is really cool because it's what unites us. So here is a karyotype of a human. So again, I told you we have 22 pairs of autosomes. These are those homologous chromosomes that I talked about. So they're the same size, the same shape, and they carry the same genes. Down here are sex chromosomes. So we have an X and a Y. So what is the gender of this person? I'll give you kind of a second to think about it. If you said male, you are correct because we have an X and we have a Y. Now this is a healthy, just generically looking at this karyotype, looks like a person who I don't see any inherited genetic disorders. Now, if there was an extra chromosome here, that would be considered a trisomy. So trisomy 21 is actually the genetic disorder of Down syndrome. So you'll get trisomies where you have 3 chromosomes, extra chromosomes, or you'll get monosomies where you don't have enough chromosomes. And so those are considered genetic disorders. Some of them can be fatal, and they actually won't survive to be born. And some of them, like the trisomy 21 Down syndrome, we know that they can live normal lives. Now we're going to head into some important terms. So it's very important you guys understand what diploid versus haploid means. So diploid is a cell containing 2 sets of chromosomes. So that karyotype I showed you in the last slide, that was a diploid set, okay? Meaning it contained 2 sets of chromosomes. So we saw those homologous chromosomes and those 2 sex chromosomes. Now when we say this, we're talking specifically about humans. So 22 pairs of homologous chromosomes, 2 sex chromosomes for a total of 46. All cells in your body are diploid with the exception of reproductive cells, so sperm and egg. So every single cell in your body is going to be diploid except if you're male, sperm, and if you're female, your eggs. And the abbreviation for diploid is 2N. So it's just saying 2 sets of those chromosomes. Now we're going to talk about haploid. Haploid means that it contains half the number of chromosomes, or only one set. It's going to have one autosomal and one sex chromosome. So in this case, we would have just half of that information. So it would be 23. So 22 chromosomes, autosomal chromosomes, and then that one sex chromosome. And we find these in reproductive cells, and our abbreviation is 1N. So some of you might be asking, why do we need our reproductive cells to only contain half of the information? Well, during conception or fertilization, we want to make sure we have that correct number of chromosomes. Remember, in a human's case, it's 46. So when you are creating a baby, you want to have half of the information from your mom and half of the information from your dad. So in this case, it would be 23, 23 comes together at fertilization, and we have 46. And that is the correct number of chromosomes for a human. If it didn't happen that way and we had diploid, then we would have 46, 46 for a total of 92. And then that baby would be 92 with maybe, let's say, 46. Just wouldn't work out. We would have too much information. And so that's why it's important that we have these haploid cells. And we'll talk about meiosis, which is the formation of these sex cells. So here are just some chromosome numbers again, and then their body cell, which is their diploid number, and then their gamete. You also hear that term for a reproductive cell, and it's N. So you'll see a human, we talked about 46. Our gamete number, our sex cell number would be 23. So 46 chromosomes in every cell in your body, except for those reproductive cells. And you can kind of go down. So you'll notice it's pretty easy. It's just half of the number. All right, and that is chromosomes. And we'll talk about the importance of chromosomes as we head into mitosis. If you guys have any questions about chromosomes, email me, Skype me, or give me a call. Hopefully you guys found that a little bit interesting.